Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Invoke Malaysia GE-14 Prediction Forum with the title What the Big Data Tell Us. On behalf of Invoke Malaysia, thank you so much for joining us tonight at Swiss Garden Hotel, Kuala Lumpur. Ladies and gentlemen, please be informed that tonight's forum is also broadcasted via Facebook Live. You can find us on Facebook page Rafizi Ramli, Invoke Malaysia, and you can also search us on YouTube, Invoke Malaysia.
A bit of context, Fendi. The 14th general elections is just around the corner. With a new proposed redelineation of election boundary, plus the possibility of 3/5 in the majority of the election seats, it is therefore unsurprising that the common wisdom inclined towards the defeat of Pakatan Harapan, if not the return to BN to third majority. Tonight, informed by Big Data Analytics, Invoke Malaysia is proud to present our prediction for the 14th general election.
Ladies and gentlemen, the program will be divided into two parts. The first part will be a presentation by Rafizi Ramli on the latest finding based on the survey conducted by Invoke Malaysia and the likely election outcome. And then we will continue with the second part with the forum itself.
Without further ado, I would like to invite YB Rafizi Ramli, Invoke Volunteer 001.
Please welcome.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Please focus on the slide and not on me, because there will be a lot of numbers. Thank you very much for being here. I will take about most probably 45 minutes at most to go through the numbers, the methods. For those who are watching outside, I will change between Malay and English because we have representatives from the embassies here. But we also have a large audience outside, so who prefer that the whole session is conducted in Malay. So I will have to speak in English and then Malay and interchangeably. The reason we do it tonight is because as we have announced to the public, the 13th general election is going to be unprecedented in a way that there has never been a set of data that can guide anyone in this country, whether you are analysts, whether you are politicians, whether you are Najib, how the outcome will be, because there has never been a full-fledged three-corner fights in the country before. Whatever three-corner fights that had taken place in the past, that was not within the kind of an almost two-party system that we have now. It's almost a two-party system. You have BN, and you also have Pakatan Harapan as a national coalition, and also the dynamics of PAS, which, as you will see later on, still commands substantially a high portion of Malay votes. Malaysians also are not accustomed to first past the post three-corner fights, whereby no matter how strong the third party is, the votes is useless. In the UK, between Tory and Labour and Lib Dem, Tory may get 35, Labour may get 32, and Lib Dem may get about 30, and all the other Looney Tunes party get whatever, the rest. But despite just about 3 or 4% difference, Tory will still win. It doesn't mean that Lib Dem is not strong. It doesn't mean that Labour is not strong. It's first past the post, and therefore the biggest loser is always the third party. And that's extremely important for the public to understand, especially Malaysian public which has not seen a full-fledged three-corner fight in the past. Kepada yang menonton di luar, saya bercakap mengenai PAS. Jadi sebab itu saya kena bercakap dalam bahasa Melayu sekarang. Malaysia belum pernah menyaksikan pertandingan 3 penjuru secara besar-besaran yang berlaku dalam keadaan ada kerajaan persekutuan dan ada pembangkang nasional yang kuat yang juga turut mengetuai beberapa buah kerajaan. Itu tak pernah berlaku dalam sejarah Malaysia. Kita juga kena ambil tahu bahawa sistem di Malaysia ialah sistem first past the post. Dia tak kira berapa banyak yang parti kedua dan parti ketiga dapat undi, asalkan ada lebih 3 undi kepada pemenang yang pertama, maka dia akan jadi wakil rakyat. Dalam keadaan ini, parti ketiga adalah parti yang paling rugi sekali. Kerana kalaupun dia dapat 30%, dia dapat 25%, itu tidak akan mengubah apa-apa keadaan kerana parti yang pertama yang dapat 5-6 undi itulah yang akan menang. Jadi sahabat-sahabat dekat luar yang saya pasti sudah mula memaki saya sekarang, perlu tahu bahawa apabila saya katakan PAS tidak akan menang 1 kerusi pun, itu tidak bermakna PAS tidak ada sokongan. Cuma dalam sistem yang berlatar belakangkan first past the post and 3 corner fights, the third party will always be the biggest loser. Then no matter how strong you are with your constituent support, you will still not win a single seat unless you become the first party. Baik, kalau kita boleh mulakan first slide. Saya akan cover lebih kurang 4 perkara yang penting malam ini. Pertama ialah methodologies, kerana akan ada pelbagai komen, akan ada pelbagai smart aleck in the room and outside the room who has never done anything about it but will have an opinion. It is very important to understand the methodologies and therefore to try to understand how different what we have been doing for the last 18 months compared to all the other surveys and all the data that have been shared with the public. I know that for the last few months, more and more research houses or polling centers give opinions here and there. Some say that Najib will win 2/3, which is good for us to retain by a simple majority, and opposition is going to win more popular vote. I don't think you have to do any polling to know that. It's so-called the general conventional wisdom. So we'll explain why what we do, I think, is slightly more different, and it's just more. It's quite. You're talking to me or no? Camera. That's why it's important to know the methodologies and to understand that it's actually very different from just a simple polling. And then I'll cover a bit before you ask me about whether polling can be relied on, whether or not a 2,000 completed respondents actually can represent the whole country. And then we'll go on the latest number. We'll show you what the public thinks about Najib, about if there is a voting tomorrow, how the public is going to vote. And the number is something that we have tracked on a monthly basis. I will show the latest ones, which is December, January, and February. March number has just been completed today, so I'm not able to put it today. And then, of course, the most fun part is that based on all the profiling and the big data analytics that we have done for the last 18 months, what do the number tell us? Okay, next. I want to explain about voters profiling. And it is a lot more than just traditional polling over the phone. Even then, there are many types of polling over the phone. Kita boleh ada telefon Nokia yang pakai kertas yang kita telefon, ataupun kita boleh temu ramah face to face. Polling yang kita buat ialah melalui satu telecenter yang standardnya sama seperti telemarketer yang ada dengan banks, yang ada dengan normal telemarketing facility, whereby some of the requirements are you need to be able to have a computerized system in order to select the voters randomly and ensure that it's stratified so that it's representative. You need to have an electronic PABX so that your call agents, and we have 30 call agents, actually can receive call, and immediately the calls are, when it's connected, it will be automatically allocated to call agents. We need to have a recording system to make sure that every interview, the audio is recorded and then uploaded into the cloud. So for the 500,200,000 plus people whom we have interviewed, their voice are all in the cloud, because part of the process is that there must be a quality control that every day we check to make sure that the call agent actually entered correctly, supaya orang tak tipu. Dia kata, ya saya dah telefon 20 orang, sebenarnya dia sembang dengan girlfriend dia pakai isi saja. So there must be a check and balance, and that's why it has to be a computerized system, and that's what we do on daily basis since December 2016, and it's already about 14-15 months. We've done digital polling over Facebook. Naim is here. If anything people want to ask, and this is not your simple polling ads. Kan ada orang kadang-kadang dapat polling apps, okay, fill in 4-5 soalan, then they will profile you as hang tuah instead of hang jebat. It's not that. This is actually, Facebook allows you to do almost a parallel polling that meets all the requirements to make the polling statistically acceptable, which is, it can be stratified, it can be randomized. I will explain a bit after this. So we've done that also on digital polling. Kita buat digital tracking over social media. We have what we call as listening post, for example. Kita ada 28,000 orang pengundi seluruh Malaysia yang kita kenal pasti sebagai atas pagar. And lo and behold, if you pay Facebook, Facebook will give you their Facebook accounts. So a lot of you don't know, when you sign up on Facebook, you sign up your identity away. So so long as we know your phone number and your emails and your IC number, we can actually match you to your Facebook profile. You may put your Facebook profile, saya sayang Najib. Nama sebenar Saifuddin Nasution, you know. That Saifuddin Nasution does not appear, yang keluar Facebook saya sayang Najib, but you know what? We will match, and we know saya sayang Najib is Saifuddin Nasution, you know. So there's a science behind it. We've run digital polling as well, and we've done the digital tracking. The reason being is, dengan 28,000 orang pengundi atas pagar yang kita telah match dengan profile Facebook mereka, at any one particular time, we can check through what we call a listening post. We can check whether or not an issue has a traction. Contohnya bila BN menyerang kerajaan Pakatan Harapan di Pulau Pinang tentang terowong dan lain-lain, we check on daily basis. Kita juga check, contohnya kalau ada skandal seks. Cara kita check ialah dengan kita listen to what the fence-sitters are talking about on their Facebook and their Twitter. You think it's private, it's not. You know, there are ways for us to listen to what you think. Just because I'm not your friend, it doesn't mean that I cannot know what you write on your Facebook and your Twitter. There are ways to do that. Of course, you have to pay. And we do that every day, we listen. So all this data combined, that also includes the phone banking and canvassing by volunteers. The process is that once we identify voters as fence-sitters, every week we have thousands of volunteers calling them and asking them questions just to verify whether are they truly fence-sitters or not. And that feed is fed back into the profiler, and the profiler will be able to adjust the profiling, whether this guy betul-betul atas pagar ke tidak, and so on and so forth. What is most important is this. When you have all this, we have hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of data points every month. Data points daripada survey, data points daripada Facebook listening, data points daripada di bawah, all sorts of data points. All these sets of data eventually are fed into a system that I will show you, and that system will study the relationship between variables and the likelihood of a person, given those variables, will vote either BN or Pakatan or pass or not voting. For example, I'm a male, 41 years old, live in Selangor, originally from Terengganu. With all the data points, the statistical model is able to calculate the probability that because I'm a male, what is the probability that a male Malay will vote for BN, or will vote for Pakatan, or will vote for PAS, and so on and so forth. And so that is what we call, that's why there's a lot of big data and the analytics involved, because the more we suck the data and all sorts, the more variables we can model, and the more we are able to predict how a person will vote. I will show this data, all hundreds of thousands of data is analyzed using all sorts of model, but the ones that I think rely heavily is the logistic regression that tells basically the relationship between a variable and an outcome. You know, if you are a male, what is the possibility that you will vote for BN, and so on and so forth. Next. I mentioned about logistic regression. If you go, I don't know how many statisticians are here. There are, regression is regression, the linear regression, all sorts of regression. If you read that, it's quite self-explanatory. Logistic regression is basically to conduct when the dependent variable is dichotomous or binary. So in our case, we want to know is that the outcome that we want to know is first whether you're going to vote for BN Kata, and then we want to know whether you are going to vote for Pakatan or not. So the outcome is always one outcome, and then you measure and you find the relationship between the traits of that next. Then once you get all this data sucked out from all the surveys that we do, from all the Facebook that we suck, that we listen to, and we put them into, okay, I hate this word. I can never pronounce the word Azure. Can anyone pronounce the word? Tell Microsoft, find a better name. Because it's really difficult. I don't know, how do you pronounce A-Z-U-R-E? Azure. Yeah, I've listened to so many YouTube pronunciations. I have not found one. How many of you actually, I don't know how many of you knows about more and more companies provide cloud services that is really powerful. It can do all sorts of statistical tools. I know Huawei has it. I think Amazon has it. We use Microsoft Solutions is Azure Machine Learning. So we put all those numbers into Azure. Let's settle for Azure Machine Learning. Next. What it does is that you pump the data into Azure Machine Learning, and then you will build your statistical modeling using R codes. Again, if you are not statisticians, it might sound alien, R and all these things. And then you will run the modeling. Okay, let's see. This is what I meant. That is basically the Microsoft Azure Machine Learning Studio. All that arrow though is just basically the statistical process. You pump the number, and then you write codes. You on your right hand side is basically all the instruction that you give to the machines to run, and that instruction is given in the form of R codes. R is just a programming language. Next. For example, these are R coding in logistic regression that we use in, if you can see, there's Bumiputra Sarawak, Bumiputra Sabah, Melayu. It's all just basically logical codes coding. Yeah? Next. So once we have that, The outcome of that is this. By the last quarter, the fourth quarter of 2017, we have 14.9 million voters, I think, close to 15 million voters. What we have in our system is that every single one voter is profiled. You may have, for example, 0.23 number for BN support. That means the chance that I will support BN is 0.23, but you have to see that in the context of the support score of everyone who is profiled to support BN. I may have 0.8 when it comes to Pakatan. That means that, I have about 80% chance of supporting Pakatan. I may have 0.45 for PAS. Every single one of you actually have that number in our system. So when we run a constituency report, that's why we can predict. We pull all these numbers, and if we have 50,000 people, then we are able to segregate them into those who will support BN, those who will support Pakatan, those who are PAS, and those who are undecided. So that's how profiling, big data analytics, and data points work. It's very different from a simple spreadsheet of calling people and say, oh, I call 100 people, and I found out 70 people actually support BN. Therefore, it's 70% times population of Malay, blah, 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 I get a number. It doesn't work like that. Every profiling is unique to an individual, and we try to get as many data points as possible about a person, and that allows us to profile better. But of course, the problem is this: garbage in, garbage out. While all this Azure machine learning, R coding, logistic regression all sounds jolly good, well and fine, the problem is this: the efficiency as well as the accuracy of the prediction very much depends on the data points that you pump into the model. So if you get garbage data, therefore you will get garbage prediction. So that's why I want to touch a bit, because I'm sure a lot of you would want to know this. Is polling and big data reliable for this purpose? Because of course people will always talk about Trump and how pollsters missed prediction about Trump's victory and Brexit. The first things that people always ask is that if you just do 1,000 or 2,000 surveys, how can that represent the whole country? We have 15 million voters. How can 2,000, 3,000 represent everything? Actually, the number of respondents that we call pretty much is controlled by what kind of margin of error that I am comfortable with. It's a function of margin of error, and by the time you reach 5,000, the margin of error will come down to about 1.5% plus minus, meaning that if the poll is showing support for BN at 40%, as far as the statistical modeling is concerned, even if it's off by, it can go by 41.5 or 38.5. It cannot be the number is 40%, but you are off because it's 50%. It doesn't work like that. So because of that, only in certain circumstances that we run huge poll that involve 40,000 people, 100,000 of people. The monthly tracking, I'm comfortable with just a margin of error of about 3%. And for that, we only need to call about 2,000 people. There were times when we started in January, we called about 104. We call millions of people, but we managed to get the respondent about 104,000. By that time, the margin of error is very small. But this is the thing that I think for those who follow about polling, the problem is actually is not in the number of respondents. Because for those who know statistics, right? I think in any university, your professor or your lecturer will always give this analogy. If you take a bowl of soup and you stir it, and it's well mixed, everything is sama semua. Whether you take to taste the soup, whether you take a small teaspoon or you ambil satu baldi, it tastes the same thing, because the soup is well mixed. And therefore, it's not really about whether you pakai teaspoon or you pakai baldi. The real issue is to make sure that the soup, or the sample in this case, is truly representative. So the issue is actually not the number of respondents, because the number of respondents basically just dictates the margin of error. The bigger problem in doing poll, and therefore the risk of missing it out the way that they missed out Trump and Hillary's election, is whether or not the sampling truly represent everyone in this country. So that's the trick. For example, I can give you an example, right? I can call 20,000 people in Selangor. Semua angkat telefon, semua. So my sample is 20,000 people. But those are all urban people. Those are Melayu yang duduk kat Taman Tun lah, kat Wangsa Maju, and all this. Their thinking only represent urban Malays. Because you don't call makcik yang dekat Gua Musang, you don't call the Malays yang Mak Rempit yang dekat Terengganu, you know. So that number, while it has a very low margin of error, because you call 20,000 people, is not representative. So the trick that we have struggled, and I'm sure any pollsters anywhere in the world struggle, is about the sampling. Yeah? And this is why we look at our success rate in calling. I don't know whether there are any other surveys that actually ask polling question, that call people and say, if there is an election tomorrow, are you going to vote? How are you going to vote? A for BN, B for Pakatan, C for PAS. Pakcik nak undi macam mana? There are not many polls that do that. The reason being is, the moment dia dengar, dia letak telefon. Dia dengar, dia letak telefon, you know. So when I say success rate on 9%, what it means is this. When you call 100 people, so far our experience, there's about 30 to 40% of that number that you dial that actually get connected to the people on the other end. So our tele center can actually dial, I think, 300 numbers per minute. So they dial 300 numbers, right? So the moment you get connected, it is allocated to the first call agent. Otherwise, it just go to the next random number, the next random number. Okay. So about 30 or 40% actually answer the phone. So the call agent will say, hello, my name is Rafizi, I'm from Invoke call center. Do you have about 5 minutes to for us to ask question? Dia okay, adik nak tanya apa? So kita tanya, the first question is, if there is an election tomorrow, esok abang keluar mengundi ke tidak? Dia jawab lagi, okay, keluar mengundi. And then ask the second question. Okay, kalau ada pilihan raya esok, ada 3 penjuru antara BN, Pakatan dengan PAS, abang undi apa? Pup dia letak terus. So out of that 30% or 40% that actually get connected, a majority will actually hang up the moment you ask them, so nak undi siapa? But if you ask other questions, contohnya, you tanya, gaji okay tak bang? Yang itu okay, dia akan stay on the line. So far, it's only the voting question. So our success rate means, out of 100 people you call, how many actually get connected and actually stayed on the line and actually answered sampai habis. So our success rate is about 9%, and 9% is within the international standard. In US, I think is about 6 or 7 now. Has dropped dramatically. Kat UK pun around that. It used to be higher, but you know lah, people just don't answer polls anymore. Especially kat Malaysia, dia takut yang call tu orang tanya pasal BRIM. Especially yang Melayu, dia takut kalau jawab BN nanti, lepas ni tak dapat BRIM. But that's how we check to make sure that statistically it stands to scrutiny. Kalau, for example, the success rate is too high, 30-40%, when the international standard is within the band of 6 to 10%, then something is not right. Either my call agent is lying to me, or somehow Malaysians are Martians, because they are not the same like the rest of the world. Kalau dia terlalu rendah, the rest of the world is between 6 to 10%, tiba-tiba ours is about 2%. Also something is wrong. I don't know how many of you are from the telemarketing or banking industry. You know, when you go back and check with your telecenter, that usually the success rate is about 12 to 15% for telemarketing. Maksudnya kalau ada orang telefon tanya, abang ada masa bang, saya nak jual credit card, pop dia letak terus. For the industry, that is about 12 to 15%. Kalau orang nak jual credit card, saya pun tak ada masa, saya tengah bawa kereta ni, padahal tengah makan. So likewise, that's why the 9% success rate is something that I think statistically we are quite comfortable. Okay. Therefore, the real crux of doing survey and therefore making sure that the data that we pumped into the whole modeling stands the scrutiny and is not garbage is this. You need to ensure every single group of voters and every single group they are distinctive in their voting preference is actually represented when we call the 2,000 people. Bila kita telefon 2,000 orang ni, contohnya ada kumpulan yang saya ingat paling payah nak dapatkan sampel dia ialah kumpulan makcik India umur 60 tahun duduk luar bandar. Payah gila nak dapat. The reason being is because there are not many of them. Contohnya Indian female over 60 yang duduk dekat Gua Musang, duduk kat Dungun, there are not many of them, Voters, maybe there are about 5,000 of them. So the probability that one of them is going to pick up is actually very very low, because bila kita call 5 million katakan kan, orang lain yang dekat bandar semua mungkin make up 2 million of the 5 million. There are only about 50,000 of the 5 million. So the chance that one of these makcik female Indian in Gua Musang angkat telefon is actually very low. And the struggle is always like that, to make sure that all the strata is represented. What we have now, we have 24 strata of voters, ataupun you guys are all grouped into different strata, Malay, by gender, by race, by urban, by age, and so on. So that satu kumpulan itu mungkin Melayu umur 30 duduk dekat bandar, lelaki. Ini ada satu group. So when we call, we make sure that of the 2,000 respondents that finally completes the survey, they are representative and weighted against the number of voters that fits into that strata. Okay, I will bore you to death going into all this. Okay, next. Everyone just want to know whether BN menang ke tidak aja. Okay. Yeah, but if I show that first, you guys balik lah. What's the point? This is the whole surveys that we have done, and also the number that we have dialed and the completed response over the last 15 months. So you can see we started out in December 2016. We called 8.4 million people. We completed about 104,000 completed response. That was necessary in order to profile as many people in the lowest level of constituencies sampai kat DUT. And then for RUU 355, for us to understand how past voters think, we call 1.1 million and we got 43,000 Malays answer. So that gives us very valuable data points to really understand how exactly past voters think. Because a lot of people give macam-macam komen. Pas macam inilah, pas macam itulah. Padahal dia tak ada data pun. Dia jumpa pakcik tepi jalan tengah sembang. So based on that one pakcik, dia buat conclusion. Pas akan buat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Unless that pakcik is hadi lah, But if it's just another pakcik dekat kedai warung, so that's why we started as early as about a year ago, 15 March to 20th March. We have the robocall, the interactive voice response, and we sample and we ask questions on RUU 355 at the height of RUU 355 in order to understand how past voters. And you can see as we go along, there were times we call millions of people, 2.67, 3.7. We wanted to know in June and July what makes Malaysian voters tick. Which one is more important? Is naming the Prime Minister the most important issue, or is it GST? Do they care about scandal, or wages is more important? So we call 2.67 million voters in June to July 2017, and we got about 17,000 response that allow us to really understand whether you are Chinese, Indian, Iban, Kadazan, Melayu, what actually is the most important issues to you, and so on and so forth. Next. Some are still running as this was prepared. The three corner monthly tracking march was completed this morning. If you notice as well, we also do specific constituency polling. We don't just do national level because we want to match and make sure and understand the so-called state differential and also different parts of Malaysia. Although the national number show BN gets 45% support, is actually different from Kedah, from Johor, and therefore we pick up all these marginal seats, and that provides all the data points, and it allows us to understand how people in Pahang are different from how people in Johor. Even in Johor, the number varies greatly from urban centers, and if you drive 2 hours away from JB, it's very different. And that's why we do all these constituency surveys, and that, I think, helps us profile voters better over the last 1 year. Next. Okay, let's go into the numbers. It's getting there. Okay. The first block is BN, blue. Red is Pakatan. Green is pass. Black is refused. And grey is undecided. Okay, I have to explain this. Remember, when you call people, only when you call 100, 30% gets through. When you start asking them about who do you want to vote, banyak letak, tinggal 10 orang je kan? It's about 10%, right? Of that 10%, when you ask them, actually 40% jawab, tak nak cakap lah. Saya belum buat keputusan lah. So usually the refuse rate is called refusal rate. Refusal rate is between 30 to 35%, and lately you will see the refuse rate is getting higher, especially the undecided is getting higher. I will explain why. We've checked as well, it's not uncommon. Even the US now, the refuse rate in Gallup poll semua tu, it is about 30% also. So if you call 10 people and you ask them, do you like Trump? 3 people will say, nah, I don't know. Most of them lie, they don't like Trump, but they don't want to tell. So this is the kind of data you get when you run vote preference survey. When you ask them if there is an election tomorrow, who are you going to vote? And that's the number, and you will always have between 30 to 35% who will refuse to give answer. A large majority of them, around 22%, will say, undi rahsia, buat apa nak beritahu? I will not tell, undi adalah rahsia. And the last part is yang I think most probably truly undecided or confused. Dan cakap, belum buat keputusan, saya tak tahulah, tengoklah dulu. Selalunya saya buat keputusan 1 hari sebelum pergi undi, that kind of things. And they do exist. But what is most important, look at the 3 bars. This is Malay voters. The first yang paling kiri tu PN, and then of the 3 bar tu is December, January, February. Don't ask me why my January salah spell. That's because Microsoft autocorrect somehow spell it as January with an I. I just don't understand. But look at the BN Malay numbers. in the last 3 months, it has dropped almost at astronomical number now. In December, 41% of those polled actually say they will vote for BN. Pakatan masa tu about 10%, PAS 14%, and then yang refuse dengan undecided tu about 32 lah 12% plus 22, 35%. Look how by January the number dropped 6% from 41 to 35%. And then it drops again by another 6-7% in February. I don't know what's the number in March. I hope it doesn't drop further, because I will drop that. Because that's scary. I don't know whether Najib sees this or not. I mean, whether dia percaya ke tidak, up to him lah. But this is what people tell. So, the last time UMNO's Malay votes drops this drastically was in 1999. This is about 6%. It was 1999. And it caused BN, 2 states, and PAS became the biggest, and it was considered as tsunami Melayu. So, looking at the number, the big wave is coming, and then look at how the trend is contrasted by Pakatan's number. Although it does not shoot up straight away, but you will see there's definitely a trend of Pakatan support picking up. And then by comparison to PAS, it wouldn't be long before Pakatan supersedes PAS. But most importantly, look at the last 2 columns on your right, the refused and undecided. These are about 30 to 35%. I'll come back to them, because the real trick in predicting how voters will vote is not so much about BN, about PH, or about PAS. These are the hardcores. You know, no matter how many super yacht that Jolo buys, they still will vote for BN. And that's not important. What is important are those 30 to 35, because these are the swing voters. They are the ones who quietly decide who is going to run the country. So the focus of our polling and profiling is not really on the BN and Pakatan and PAS, it's on those refused and undecided. I'll show you some analysis that we ask more questions on them rather than on BN, on PAS, and on Pakatan. Usually kalau dia jawab Pakatan, kita terus tanya, dulu mengundi siapa dek? Ni, okay, terima kasih, letak. Only 2-3 soalan. Kalau you dah undi Pakatan, what's the point? Anda tanya lain kan? But if you undi PAS, kita tanya lebih sikit. Dia kata undi PAS. Then it will branch to the next question to profile PAS. Kita akan tanya, kalau ada 2 corner fight saja, which is Pakatan dengan BN saja, PAS tak bertanding, siapa, macam mana you akan undi? So we know further, because we need to aggregate how many harum manis are there still left in PAS. Because that 18% of PAS who say they will vote for PAS, there are hidden Pakatan voters in there. So likewise, for those who say BN, for those who say refuse, for those who say undecided, the more they say they are undecided or refuse to answer, the more we ask questions, because we need to profile them further. And you will see majority of them is actually Pakatan supporters. I mean, it's given, it's quite straightforward common sense. These are people yang takut hilang BRIM. Jadi dia takkan beritahu lah kan. Next. These are Chinese voters. Again, no surprise. I think by the time we go into election, I'm very confident that we will match the 2013 support level. Chinese support for Pakatan will definitely hit about 80-82%. Of course, there are some state differentials, some states slightly lower, some states higher. But I disagree, and data that we have disagree with this contention that there's lethargy and disillusionment amongst Chinese voters. In terms of support, the support is almost as before. what we need to work on and focus is to make sure that every single Chinese voter around the country and the world actually come back. The issue is the turnout, it's not the issue of support. So to Leo Tiong Lai, Wee Ka Siong, who always say support has come back to MCA, good luck to you. Because nothing that shows has come to that. Next, Indian. These are Indian voters. I don't know. Some of the urban crowd usually express disappointment. Say, why lah? This is not true lah. Indians are all against BN. Actually, not really. Indian has traditionally been extremely supportive of BN, except for that one blip in 2008. By 2013, it has come back to slightly normal level. Although it was almost even between Pakatan and BN. BN had a slight edge over Pakatan, even in 2013, for Indian votes. It's just that historically, at 40% support, I think Indian eventually will hit 40 to 45% of Pakatan Harapan. At 45% support, that is historically very high by our standard, because prior to Hindraf 2007, Indians' vote split usually is 80% BN and 20% opposition. The fact that it has now evened out to 60-40 or 55-35, while it may surprise the rest of the country that, I thought Indians are all against BN. Actually, it's not. BN still has some edge over Indian votes, but with 45%, with 40% Indian support nationally, that is enough for Pakatan to win many seats where Indian has substantial voters in that area. Okay, next. This is what we... I will not share everything because that's trade secrets. I will just show two samples or examples of the questions that we ask in order to profile the profiling of pass, BN, and refused and undecided. Take this one. For respondents who choose pass, that means that when they answer, they kata ambo pilih PAH. Ambo akan pakai PAH. Sebab I always repeat this anecdote. We have volunteers calling voters in Kelantan, in Tumpat, and then obviously that guy is profiled as fan-sitter. So our volunteer call, ya pakcik, kalau election esok pakcik, pilihan raya pakcik nak undi siapa? Dia jawab, ambo undi ikut Nabi. Nabi kata kena undi PAH. Ambo undi PAH. So these are for these people. I follow what the Prophet commands that we must vote for PAS. So for those people who answer that, I will vote for PAS. We ask these very specific questions, which we think is extremely useful to identify what exactly is the hardcore support of PAS who will remain with PAS in the event of three corner fights. We ask them, do you agree that PAS contests and costs three corner fights? Because orang yang benci Kak Najib, usually dia kata, alah PAS, tak payahlah bertanding, susah nanti. Kalau yang harum manis, yang dia PAS, dia jawab dia PAS, tapi dalam hati dia adalah Pakatan, dia akan tak tahulah, tak sure. Tapi kalau orang PAS yang betul-betul hardcore PAS, yang follow, yang macam tadi, yang boykot Nabi tadi tu, this one akan cakap, setuju, memang PAS kena bertanding. And so, we ask different grades of agreement. We ask, do you agree? Setuju, lebih kurang somewhat agree, disagree, and somewhat disagree. Look at this. This question was asked to 57% of the respondents, because this was asked to people who answer they will vote for PAS, which is about 17%, plus those who answer I will not tell because my votes is secret. That's about 25%. Kemudian juga ditanya kepada orang yang kata saya belum buat keputusan, about another 15%, so it's about 57%. Yang setuju dengan three corner fight di kalangan 57% of the respondents is only about 12%. If you take 12% of 57%, okay lah, you take 12 out of 60 lah katakan, is about 7 to 8% only. PAS hardcore support among the Malays who actually agree for three-corner fight is only up to 8%, which is very interesting and very valuable to us, because remember, if we go back to slide yang Melayu, Indian, Cina, Melayu, okay? Look at that PAS number. In February, there were 18% respondents who said kalau election esok saya akan undi PAS. Tetapi daripada 18 itu, hanya lebih kurang 8% yang setuju three-corner fight. 10 lagi sebenarnya macam tak tahulah, kalau boleh tak payahlah. You know, that kind of answer. Or somewhat agree tapi sayanglah kalau three-corner fight. Meaning that there are about 10% of that 18% which are persuadable and sympathetic to Pakatan Harapan. When we match that number with all the other profiling questions that we are specific to PAS voters, our assessment is whatever is people who answer they will vote for PAS, the maximum hardcore PAS support does not surpass 10%. The ones yang lebih tu 17, 18, 20%, so those are all persuadable voters. They may swing either way, and the largest chunk of them are sympathetic to Pakatan, so they are up for grab. Next question. Next, okay. Okay, this is also the question that we asked to orang yang jawab BN, dia kata dia undi BN, dia kata dia undi PAS, ataupun dia kata dia refuse to answer, ataupun dia kata undecided. This is 86% of respondents in February, and we asked this killer question about Najib. We asked them, you nak Najib jadi PM lagi ke tidak? Satu lagi soalan yang kita orang selalu tanya, yang is very effective in drawing out macai Najib yang topmost ni, ialah kita tanya dia, do you blame Najib for the cost of living? Ni, adakah anda rasa harga barang naik disebabkan oleh Najib? Why that question and the question I mentioned tadi is very effective? Because orang yang betul-betul hardcore BN dan juga totok BN, dia akan marah. Dia kata mana ada, bukan salah Najib, ini salah Amerika. Kan? You know, they can blame anything under the sun, but not Najib. You know, likewise, dia juga akan kata, saya nak Najib jadi PM sekali lagi. Okay, this is also interesting. About 38% agree, meaning that about 38%, katakanlah 40 lah, put it at 40% who wants Najib to be Prime Minister again, and then you bring down the 86% respondent to about 80. So the hardcore Melayu UMNO support is about 32%. 40 yang nak Najib jadi PM again, and yang they don't blame Najib for anything under the sun. Semua bukan salah Najib. And that's about, if you round the number, that's about 40 times 80 is about 32%. Meaning that only a third of Malay voters now is actually loyal to UMNO. There's about 2/3 which can go either way. And most probably, looking at how the number for UMNO drops very quickly, more and more people are actually moving away. Hafiz, go balik to yang Melayu tadi. Okay, look at the last column yang undecided tu. Do you see? December 11.9% say undecided. January 12.2% undecided. Do you see in February it jumps to 17%? The reason being is when the number yang BN tu, when the support for BN drops, they don't automatically switch to Pakatan. Dia tak kata, oh saya tak suka Najib jadi saya akan undi Pakatan. Dia ni dulu orang UMNO, pak dia UMNO, menantu dia UMNO, nenek dia UMNO, semua UMNO. Jadi untuk dia kata, saya tak nak undi BN tu, dia tak kata dia akan undi Pakatan. Dia kata, tak tahulah, saya belum buat keputusan. But that means basically they have swayed. These are the persuadable voters, and you see quite a strong correlation between the drop in BN support with the rise of voters who say they are undecided or they refuse to tell. So the more we have this group of people who say they are undecided or they refuse to answer, it is indicative and correlates with the drop in BN support, because it is not an automatic transfer to Pakatan. They will go around robin, they go to undecided and refuse first. So that's why the undecided and refused voters are extremely important to gauge whether or not BN is losing support by the day. Okay, go back to okay, let's go to the number. Okay, last part. Next. Okay, so let's go to the seat tally. Now that we have all those data, I've shown you the voter sentiment, the sample, the surveys, what happened to the survey is that it will be fed into the Azure machine learning and it will profile, and our system will then call the result and profile every single state, constituency, DON, daerah mundi, and so on. So I will go through state by state. Let's start with Perlis. Perlis, BN will win 3 based on the data and all the profiling. BN will win 3 parliamentary seats, but out of the 3, 1 is a marginal win. So in the next 2 or 3 months for election, if Pakatan pulls a very good campaign in Perlis, we may actually capture 1 parliamentary seat in Perlis. State seat, well, it's Perlis, so we will add just another one. Daripada 13 to from previous so far, Pakatan only has 1. It is likely that Pakatan will add another 1. Next. Kedah will become Pakatan state, true and true. And so Ahmad Bashar should sleep and never wake up after this. Because look at the state seat, Pakatan will win 22 and BN will win 14. Of that 22, 1 of the state seats that Pakatan will win is actually Bakar Bata, where Menteri Besar seat is. So every indication points to Pakatan's taking over Kedah. What is not certain is how big is the win, how many seats. As it is, BN will retain about 5 parliamentary seats, Pakatan 10, PAS 0, and state seat, Pakatan should win, I think that's quite comfortable, 22 simple majority. Next, Penang, again almost a clean sweep for Pakatan. Parliament, Pakatan will win 11, 2 BN, but very marginal. That 2 parliamentary seat, even if BN retains it in the next 2 months, because I think election is end of April, early May, even if they retain it, they will retain it so marginally, so it's up for grab. I initially wanted to split into marginal win, marginal loss, but then I'll be doing homework for Najib and give everything for Najib, Let him make some homework and work on his own to try to guess which one is marginal or not. But that 2 seats, parliamentary seats that BN will retain in Penang is marginal. You can see the state is beyond 2/3. BN will only be left with 5 state seats after this, not a problem. Next, let's go to Perak. Perak will marginally go to Pakatan Harapan at last by 1. Based on all the surveys and everything that's happening, our reading and our estimate is Pakatan, as of February, should be able to take over Perak. 32 to 27, and make sure every single candidate sign a contract for 20 million, because there'll be a big prize for them, because otherwise Perak will be taken away again, because the majority is quite small. The majority is only 4 majorities. Aku tak sebut nama Rosmah lagi. Why is it gone? That always happens, every time you talk about Najib or they are losing, somehow something will not work. Not blackout yet. So a good tally in Perak. Next in Selangor. Selangor is a walk in the park, and I would like to caution all Pakatan parties, please do not kill each other after this, because state seat negotiation in Selangor is still ongoing. Now that we show the number that we think Pakatan can win up to 50 seats, which is the highest ever, 50 out of 56, please don't kill each other. Likewise, I think we will have the highest parliamentary tally. I was polite to Nohoma in Parliament. I wish I sort of had the heart to tell him, I think you will lose, But I didn't. But even, again, the 2 seats that BN retained is actually very marginal. Actually, it's quite straightforward. You don't need rocket science to understand the result. Selangor is a state with most mid seats. Selangor also is a state with most urban centers. Therefore, people in Selangor are the most affected by bread and butter issues. They are the ones that suffer GST, suffer minyak, and so on. So the support, I wouldn't necessarily say that the support for Pakatan. I would say that the rejection of Najib, the hatred for Najib, is highest in Selangor, which makes sense, lah. And because the seats in Selangor are then that's the number. I forgot to tell, we have already taken into account. This has already taken into account the proposal for redenomination. If you want to ask further about how that affects, we'll cover it during the forum. But the number already reflects more or less, the effect of redenomination. So if Najib wants to, wants to bring it to Parliament, bring it on by all means. Once you've done the number, once you roughly know, you assess your risk, well, fair enough. You want to bring it. As you can see, it does not materially swing the odd against us that much. The reason being is because the Malay swing. Because even if you add, for every 10 Malays that you add into a constituency that UMNO used to do, only 4 people at most will vote for BN. 6 will vote against them. Because at most, they will get about 40% in 3 corner fights. So for every 10 Malays you add into a constituency, you only get 4 for you, 6 against you. So they're quite stark, actually. Damn if they do, damn if they don't. Either way, I don't care. So if they want to do regeneration, let them do it. We will still win 50 out of 56 seats in Selangor. Let's go to Wilayah. Wilayah, it should be a clean sweep, except for Putrajaya lah. That one too is Putrajaya. But all numbers are showing we should be able to win all seats in Wilayah. Next. Even Lembah Pantai, for all that is happening in Lembah Pantai and people speculate many things, we should be able to win Lembah Pantai. Of course, the issue is the margin of winning, but that I do not show which marginal, which is not, but we should be able to win. I think there's something bigger than me at work here. Okay, let's go to Negeri Sembilan. Wilayah Sembilan. Okay, Negeri Sembilan is interesting. It's black. It's hung. We will not make much headway in Parliament. We will retain the 3 parliamentary seats that we get. So far, there's no indication that Pakatan will add any new parliament seat di Negeri Sembilan. But we will be able to get another 3 or 4 extra seats at state, and it will turn to be a hung state. Interesting, yeah. I initially wanted to put more details here about ministers who are in danger. Because when it comes to Negeri Sembilan, it's extremely interesting. The reason you see the possibility of a hung state assembly is because in all likelihood, Negeri Sembilan chief minister will lose his seat. His seat is in Rembau, Rantau Negeri Sembilan, and Rantau is actually 55-45% seat. 55% Malays, 46% non-Malays. So far, no UMNO candidate has ever won or can withstand that kind of seat. And the reason why I initially wanted to put, and I said, tak baiklah, kesian kat dia, and I decided not to, is because the effect will be quite high on KJ. Rembau, is now a marginal seat. So although we do not add a single one, all the 5, I think out of the 5 seats, there are 2 marginal parliamentary seats. One of those is actually Rembau. So KJ has to decide what he wants to do after this. I'll send him the detail and data, and he can decide what he wants to do after this. I think there'll be a scramble. They will be scrambling for some musical chair in Negeri Sembilan, because some of the seats for the key leaders are no longer safe. Certainly not for the Menteri Besar, and certainly not for KJ. So, but it will be a hung parliament, and therefore it's black. It remains to be seen which way it can go. It can go either way. It's quite obvious. Whoever wins Negeri Sembilan is by a small majority, 1 or 2 seats. Next. I love this because Malacca is a perfect hung state. Yeah. Who would have thought? Even I had to run and say, betul ke ni? But Malacca is based on all the data, all surveys, all the profiling that we do. Malacca is another hung state. Parliament is 3-3. Even that 3 yang BN retains, there's 1 which is actually very marginal, and state is actually going to be hung 14-14. I wonder what Idris Harun will do. You know, the reason why I don't mind sharing this with the world, because I know they will write this off. Because they will go back and cakap, tipu lah, ini buat sendiri, lukis-lukis. Good luck to you. So the more they do that, the more I'm happy. Yeah, I'm sure they will say that, tipu lah, ini tak betul lah, saya tahulah, saya ramai pengikut. That's what Ali Rustam said before he lost in 2013. The same thing, why you see such a massive change in Negeri Sembilan and Malacca is also because of a combination of the demography and the socio-economic background of the society. Demography-wise, Negeri Sembilan and Malacca are more mids than most other states. They have a lot of mid seats actually, especially Malacca. Negeri Sembilan, as you go into the interior, Jempol, Jelebu, Tampin, less mids lah. But Malacca, through and through, from south to north, they're actually quite mixed seats. It's just that BN was so strong there before. But now with the swing of BN voters, suddenly a lot of the seats become marginal. And Malacca as well is more urbanized than many states in the country. I mean, to their credit, it's actually quite a good state economically. And the urbanization was better than many other states. Therefore, the effect of bread and butter issues, the economy, is more profound in Malacca than in other places. Okay, next. Johor will marginally go to Pakatan Harapan, at least based on the number. Although it's still quite marginal, it's only about 2 seats away, so it can go either way. But I can only call the number based on what we have in February. Parliament is quite foregone conclusion that Pakatan should be able to pull more seats than BN in Johor, and in fact, Hishamuddin should be very, very worried. Hishamuddin's seat is in that 10 that BN will win, but it's very marginal. The reason being is because Sembrong is also a 69-31 seat. 69% Malays and 31% Chinese and Indian. All those 69-31 seats, 70-30, 65-35, they are all in danger of falling. So if I'm Hishamuddin, I would advise him to go and grab Azalina's seat in Pengerang. Pengerang is very safe, then let him scramble. There are only a few safe seats for UMNO leaders in Johor. That's Mersing, that's Kota Tinggi, that's Tenggara, that's Pengerang. So let them choose which one of the four. But if Hishamuddin stay put in Sembrong, if we can push a bit more Malay votes as well as make sure that we have a high turnout of the Chinese, Hishamuddin may fall. Okay, next. Well, here comes, okay, this is the irony. The East Coast will become the land of the blue after this. Starting with Pahang, Pakatan will actually make some headways in state seats. We will add, sekarang kaji kita ada about what? Kita ada 12, 13. In Pahang, 12. 14. We have. The reason why in places like Pahang you don't see a big surprise like in West Coast is because past effect is beginning to matter here. Retain considerable support in Pahang, more so in Terengganu and Kelantan. So in the three-corner fights, when PAS actually takes away substantial Malay votes from Pakatan, then it becomes slightly harder for Pakatan to win. And the other issue is in Pahang, the urbanization and the mixed area is very localized and concentrated in the Kuantan Valley. It's only in Kuantan Valley, and also you have in the Cameron, in the Bentong area. The rest are actually very Malay area. And so then it's given, as it is now, whatever it is passed will still get 0, no matter what. Let's go to Terengganu. This is my state, and the Adun in Bandar Kuala Terengganu will be the sole opposition rep in the whole state. Based on the numbers so far, is going to be a clean sweep of BN. Even Hadi is not going to win his seat, either one. Parliament nor the state, and based on the data, based on the polling, based on the work, BN will pull through all sweep clean except for Bandar Kuala Terengganu, which is the only rep whom we expect can win. Although Kuala Terengganu, existing seat by Pakatan, actually is a marginal loss. It's a marginal loss, but it's a loss nevertheless. Marginal loss we define as a loss with less than 5% margin. So it's about 4% something, I think. So there's a lot of hard work in Terengganu because we have to pull to make sure there's another of the 31 state seats that BN are expected to win. There is another one marginal seat in Terengganu, but frankly speaking, I do not see that we go beyond 2 or 3 in Terengganu for the state seat. It's fine. I mean, I'll go back to Terengganu and see what can we do after this. But let them be in BN for one term. And then last one, Kelantan also is a clean sweep by BN. Is a clean sweep by BN. I know some people may not be too happy and say, hey, I can win lah, I work very hard. I can only report the number. Kota Baru is a marginal loss. Kota Baru and Kuala Terengganu are in the same category, is a marginal loss. But as of February 2018, is a clean sweep. But PH boleh menang Kota Lama. Kota Lama ada about 34% Chinese, I think. And Kota Lama we should be able to win. Okay. So let's go to the final slide. That's the tally for the parliamentary seats in Semenanjung. To answer, so is Najib still going to be there? Pakatan in Semenanjung will get 89. If we push a bit more, it can go either way. It can go 92, 93, or becomes 85. But with expected about maybe 7 to 8 seats in Sabah and maybe 5 to 6 seats in Sarawak. Based on, I have to explain, we don't profile Sabah Sarawak voters. The reason being is extremely difficult to do that data-wise, because in the voters roll, they are not identified as Malay. They are identified as Bidayuh, Kadazan, Iban, Bisayah, Sulu, Bajau, So you imagine when we want to get enough sample from Sulu, we have to really spend many months to get the required sample. In Sabah and Sarawak, we do follow the monthly tracking just to see how the mood is, but that number is not statistically good enough for us to put into our statistical model. So we don't profile, and therefore we cannot call the result for Sabah Sarawak the way that we do for Semenanjung. But conventional wisdom is that Pakatan Harapan should be able to maintain between 5 to 6 seats in Sarawak, which are the existing seats. And then with some boost from Warisan should be able to deliver another 3 or 4. And then PKR has about 1 or 2 in the KDM area, which we can win. And DAP has about 2 seats in the urban, Sandakan and Kota Kinabalu. So you are looking at between 7 to 8. So the total tally for Borneo is about 15. That number is important because in all likelihood, Pakatan Harapan will cross the 100 marks as of today. The issue is, in these 2 months, how the Malay voters and how each party appeal to the undecided voters, all those undecided tadi, that will basically deliver. If Pakatan can push further to maybe 100 in Semenanjung, then it will cross the simple 111. As it is, I think the tally is about 100 to 105, assuming that Pakatan will get about 15 from Sarawak. So it's about 105 to 104. That's what we believe. So whether you want to believe it or not, it's up to you. I mean, I'm not standing, it's not my concern. I will be concerned when we lose because I have to pack up and go to jail. But before that, I'm not that concerned. The reason why we share this number is this. I think there have been so many analyses and opinions being made without being grounded to data. And I have a problem with that because it's not fair to the public. It's not representative of at least what the public, at least what we have polled so far. I do not include the Facebook polling, which we did, because the Facebook polling will get everyone in the world laughing at Najib because Najib lost heavily on the Facebook polling. We don't show it because it goes back to the sampling issue. Facebook polling that we did shows that 44% of Malays support Pakatan and only about 22 support BN. It's not really representative because there's good news. The good news out of that is not so much that Pakatan support is much higher than BN. The good news is this. Randomized, stratified voters whom are picked up from Facebook are more likely to be Pakatan supporter than BN because more Pakatan supporters use Facebook and very active on Facebook compared to BN supporters. When we look at the mean age, when we look at the median, it shows that the median age is about 30-ish of the respondents. So if anything, it shows that the large majority of the young Malays actually are in support of Pakatan, which is not a surprise. We all know that. But it's also a comfort to us when we look at the numbers because it debunks all this talk about BN is winning the social media war. I was like laughing my head off because we monitor the Facebook of key leaders, the combined Facebook reach, the combined Facebook impressions, Facebook RT, the combined everything, Facebook absolute growth, relative growth, the combined for Pakatan Harapan leadership is still more than for BN. So all the numbers seems to agree that in terms of social media, Pakatan Harapan has way ahead in terms of our grip and control. So the number itself is not statistically that useful to compare here, because it's quite obvious the sampling is skewed towards the young one, because makcik-makcik dengan pakcik-pakcik yang sokong BN mana ada Facebook. So bila Facebook randomly select orang kan, they keep hitting younger people, they keep hitting younger Malay. It's only the younger Malay yang answer. I mean, it makes sense lah, because pakcik-pakcik tua ni dia tak ada Facebook, you know. So that's why we don't show it here, because it shows too high a support for Pakatan from Facebook users, from Facebook polling. So, and I would like to stop there, and then maybe we take Q&A after this. We have about half an hour to 45 minutes. But I hope those who attend, those who watch outside, those who come from the media, from the foreign missions, from the businesses, you make your calculation carefully after this, because it can go either way. It's quite obvious that this election is too close to call. And it's important for Pakatan Harapan to understand that they are within a striking distance of taking Putrajaya, yet the persuaded voters are very big. It's about 35% of the population. It can go either way. Our leadership has to be very careful about what they say, has to be very targeted about what they want to do, has to be very systematic in campaigning. There's really no point talking to the converted, because at the end of the day, it's this 35% of persuadable voters who will decide the result of the election. It's about 2 months away, and the kingmaker is not passed. The kingmaker are these persuadable voters. So it can go either way. It's up for grab. Because that is the message that my team at Invoke would like to share with the public today. And it's also a comfort to everyone, Malay, Chinese, Indian, Iban, Kadazan, because what the big data analytics show all these last 17 months is this: Malaysians are not stupid, you know. There's no such thing as apalah Melayu ni Najib curi duit pun tak berubah and so on. It's not true. All numbers are pointing to a massive swing. The only difference is a three-corner fight. Therefore, it's slightly tricky, and you have to be a bit more targeted. Likewise, all those people who say the Chinese are disenfranchised and they don't want to come back, that's not true either. Nothing from the data, and we get the data from about 500,000 people over the last 18 months, nothing suggests any of the sorts that people talk about. Yeah? So I would like to end before I give it back to Fendi dengan Midi. This is still the best election for change. So let's, but the call is ours. It's up to the leadership, and it's up to every single Malaysian to make it happen.
The show is not over yet. We are going with the second part of the forum. I would like to invite all the panelists to be on the stage. Mr. James Chai and Mr. Naim Brundage, together with Rafizi, they will be doing the second part of the event, which is the forum. We will take your questions at the end of the forum.
There's a lot of questions.
We will read the written question, as well as we can use the mic at the back to ask questions direct to the panelists.
Right, just going to begin with the format first. So what happened is a very free flow. So the question will come from three sources. The first one coming from us, then the selected question that we have received from the audience just now, because I believe we have run through the question that's being sent to us by the notes, but after run through it, we've noticed that I believe that 8 out of 10 questions has been answered by Rafizi's presentation just now, but there are some, I think 2 or 3, 5 questions that we're going to address to the panelists, and also we're going to receiving question from the audience soon after we start the ball rolling. All right, we're going to go with Naim Brundage. So Naim Brundage is one of the panelists. We're going to introduce them first. All right, I'm going to start with the first panelist from my far left from here will be Mr. James Chai. He studied law in University of Queen Mary. He received a first-class honours degree, and after that he pursued a master in criminology from University of Oxford. And now currently one of the fellow of Invoke Centre for Policy Research, and one of the panelists is Mr. James Chai. Another round of applause for James.
Yep. Our next speaker is Mr. Naim Brundage. He is the head of digital marketing at Invoke Malaysia. Basically, I believe he will explain later about his role, but he does all the social media. He's formerly with J. Walter Thompson. Yeah.
Right, so I'm going to go with the first round of questions, because this is issue concerning cyber warfare. Because recently we have some academic, I forgot the name of the professor, who said that in terms of employment of cyber warfare, BN is winning. So although it sounds very, the news that coming up from Rafizi just now sounds too good to be true, but there are some voices that says that even in that sense, BN is winning. What are your opinion in regard to the question from your point of view as the digital marketing head of Invoke Malaysia?
Thank you, Midi, for that question. Assalamualaikum and good evening, everybody. I would like to say thank you for having me to give a talk here today. In regards to the question by Midi Rahim, our moderator, in regards to the statements that was made by Dr. Ross Tapsell, that was heavily quoted in Malay Mail Online, I have actually spoken with him after that quote was made, and he has asserted his opinion that he was actually misquoted during his presentation at Sunway University. I have written evidence on this. And I can share it with some of you later after the forum. What he actually stated during the Sunway University forum was that he asserted that Barisan Nasional is doing better now compared to how they were doing before. So he was making an analysis in comparison in regards to Barisan Nasional during the 2013 election and now coming towards the 2014 election. So he did not make any comparison in regards to Barisan Nasional now and Pakatan Harapan now. In regards to some of the other institutions that also have made claims in regards to Barisan Nasional leading the social media warfare, I would like to quote Polytweet. Some of the analysis that they have made, I believe, is not biased and impartial. But how it was quoted by the media is a bit wrong to me. I will give you an example right now. In regards to their statement that a lot more of the voting population now, shows more interest towards UMNO. I feel that it's a bit misleading because the way they extract that information is based on frequency. So the more people talks about UMNO, let's say 1,000 people talks about UMNO, but in a negative sentiment, they will not be able to track that negative sentiment. And also, if I look into some of the analysis that they have made, one of it I find to be quite interesting is when they said that Barisan Nasional pages is leading compared to Pakatan Harapan pages. And I think that analysis was made by comparing pages that has the name Barisan Nasional compared to pages that have Pakatan Harapan, and that includes poster that is being shared on those pages. On Friends of Barisan Nasional, you can see that 90% of their content are actually non-political, and those.
Okay dah. Tak ada.
No, I nak mencelah because if you look at Friends of BN, 90% of the posting is about kucing. So people tend to share kucing lah, orang belanggar lah, and so on kan. Every time dia share pasal Najib saja, dia kena maki. The way that the social media analysis is done is actually very tricky because you have to scrape the number, you have to make sure that it's apple to apple comparison. we monitor the number of reach to identified fan sitters. We monitor the number of shares with the number of views. So far, there's no indication that BN is leading lah. Is actually everything shows that Najib actually this week is still number 2. My Facebook is still number 1. And so I am extremely sensitive when they say Najib wins when Najib is actually number 2. And then I think that's why this analysis about social media, you have to look in details what exactly is being compared. But kalau you tengok comments dekat Facebook pun, BN related comments are mostly from cyber troopers. Pakatan related comments are usually from real people, real voters. So that alone actually is symptomatic of the kind of support that you have in social media.
So the claim by BN is just a fake news.
Okay, my next question is to James. James is 24 years old gentleman, started working at a law firm. He's Chinese, grew up in a Chinese family. You can speak Chinese, right, James? Yeah, very fluently, I suppose.
Well, enough.
Alright, but the reason why I put this in context because as we look back at data this term, the Chinese support for Pakatan Harapan is almost similar to what we had in GE-14. Perhaps, James, you could share with us based on your observation and your research as well. What's the conversation going on now with the Chinese community, and what is the likely patent voting? I mean, it's a foregone conclusion, they are with us, but how about the young Chinese?
Well, thanks for that question, first of all. I think so I'm the research fellow for this think tank that's linked to Invoke. So Invoke is this big data team, and I am this research think tank fellow. So what we try to do is that we try to combine whatever data that we have, as well as combining it with qualitative data. Qualitative data means the kind of stuff that you look through academic journal to try to understand why that is the case, right? So what we found was that the main concerns for young people in the urban area are normally cost of living issues. Young people in the rural area are job opportunities as well as wages, right? So the older group of Chinese in the urban areas, they're more sensitive towards corruption issues, the national leadership Chinese, they're more concerned with domestic local issues like the ones that you would normally contact your local council for. But the common theme for all of that group of people is that they're very sensitive towards economy as well as national leadership issues. So those coincidentally were the biggest weaknesses of Najib and his government. So we have a whole host of data that shows that even with typically very conservative responders who are Chinese, because normally they wouldn't indicate to what answer that they would give, even those, right, we find that their responses were overwhelmingly in favor of opposition or really anti-government sentiments, right? So I could share just one or two data concerning this, right? So 70% of the families, the Chinese families, think that they and almost 62% of those Chinese families think that it will be worse off economically as well, right? Bearing in mind all these data are very conservative, which means that the actual number and how they actually feel are probably much, much more than that. Right? So to answer the second part of Fendi's question as to the feel on the ground, right? It's extraordinary that we have like the MCA president Liao Tiong-lai saying this. He says that there is a likelihood of a 10 to 15% swing of the Chinese back to MCA. And the reason he gave was that he feels it. He knows that that's the case. Because that's extraordinary. Why? Because if you say, you can prove to us data-wise, right, why the numbers swinging back to you, it's okay. But if you say it's few, not only is it unscientific, but the few, if you know any Chinese and you talk to any Chinese, right, the few is horrible. Because every time you mention to some of your Chinese friends, hey, you from MCA one, is it? They would be, no lah, something like that. So it's an object of humiliation and object of hostility, right? There's this, just 2 years ago, just one more point, right? Just 2 years ago, so Dongjong is this educationist group that primarily wants UEC to be recognized, want Chinese education to be protected. So they lobby a lot of Chinese-based political parties, right? So once and the MCA leaders were invited to it, they were heckled and there was hostile reactions towards them. And I think that is really the more accurate picture as to the feel on the ground. For me, it's not only the data, but the observations, the qualitative observations on the ground, is quite a foregone conclusion that even if these Chinese are, not with Pakatan Harapan, they are definitely not with MCA.
Right, I think kita dah panas. So we're now accepting question from the floor. So there is only 2 rules. First, state your name, and secondly, please make sure that your question confining within 1 minute. Kalau you have an anecdote before the question, make sure that you're actually asking a question. Other than that, feel free to beratur lah kot. Alright. Use the mic. We already installed it. I think the lady in yellow, maybe you can just go to the mic over in the right hand side. The second mic. We're going to take 3 questions first. Lepas tu abang. The lady in yellow first.
Okay, you first. Okay.
Hi, I'm Chocho. I just want to ask, you said that the undecided, the persuadable section is actually going to be a key in this election. So how much of an impact is the Undi Rosak campaign going to be? Thank you.
Assalamualaikum, saya Jamzuri. Soalan saya ialah terdapat dakwaan bahawa di kalangan wakil rakyat Pakatan Harapan sendiri tidak perform. Jadi dan juga mungkin ada calon-calon yang tidak disukai oleh pengundi sebab mungkin pengundi lebih memilih calon pada kali ini. Jadi bagaimana sentimen ini reflect dengan finding yang dibentangkan oleh Invoke tadi? Apakah sentimen-sentimen ini dikira dalam dapatan itu? Sekian.
Thank you. My name is Subramanian Pillai. I have a very simple question. In your analysis, did you take into account of the differential voter turnout? Because voter turnout can be different for different age groups, different ethnic groups, and different locations. So have you taken into account when you performed that final tally that you came out with? Thank you.
Right, so we have 3 questions. The first one in regards to Undi Rosak. Maybe I'm going to pass Undi Rosak to you guys. And then there is the issue of whether candidacy is distributed according to the performance, to the finding of the survey. And lastly is the turnout. How we can translate the support to turnout. Okay, the first question first on Undi Rosak. What do you think? Can Undi Rosak impact the support to Pakatan Harapan?
Well, I think 2 things, right? First of all, I think there's a big problem in terms of spotlight as well as attention that we give towards Undi Rosak movement, right? So the more attention that we give to it, there is this exaggerated understanding that somehow all of the young people are not voting now, right? But if you track the movement as well as the responses that they get, especially from young people, right, who you would expect, nowadays are quite simple-minded or whatever, they're not, right? So there is this strong resistance actually against Undi Rosak movement, and I think it's just a minority, really small segment of people, and I think the more attention should be given to the hardworking people, or for example Invoke or other kind of activist groups who are also young, probably also in the same kind of category as this Undi Rosak movement, but these are good people with good intentions of wanting to do good work. And I think because of the lack of spotlight upon the right kind of young people, there's this understanding that somehow it would disrupt it a lot. I really doubt that's the case, right? But what I've found from my examination for this particular forum, I focus upon the Chinese young people, and the biggest problem is not disillusionment. The biggest problem is just getting out the vote. The understanding nowadays is that, oh, it's so quiet lah. Nowadays, compared to GE-13, there's no slogan, there's no hoo-ha as to what's going on. I think the biggest reason, and what we could validate from our data, is that most people have made up their minds, Chinese young people at least, right, have made up their mind as to who they want to vote, and therefore you just have to push them out to vote on that day, and that is the case. So the short answer is that I don't think that affects a lot.
Naim, you spend your life 24/7 on social media. I mean, I'm sure you can assess the support on Undi Rosak. Your comment?
My comment will be based on the Facebook polling that we have done on social media. Based on the result that we have gathered, we actually include Undi Rosak in one of the options. So we list down the amount of parties that is contesting in the next general election. We include Undi Rosak, and we also include Undi Saya Rahsia. And if you actually want to know, based on the result nationally, Undi Rosak had only garnered about 0.2% of the votes. And if you compare that to Undi Saya Rahsia, which is 30.7%, so Undi Rosak, among all of the different options available, actually garnered the least amount of result. And I also been reading a lot of news report in regards to Undi Rosak, in regards to how it went viral on Twitter, on Facebook, and whatnot. But after looking at these numbers, after doing an analysis on how it is being portrayed, I realized that all of these media reports did not include a sentiment analysis. So they did not take into account that a lot of the people who are talking about Undi Rosak is actually condemning Undi Rosak. And then I also realized that there's a geographic factor. So a lot of people that were talking about Undi Rosak was actually more concentrated in urban areas, and it's not widespread. It's not a national phenomena as some claim for it to be.
On Undi Rosak, tapi fokus on the issue of candidacy based on actual support to turn out.
Ni belum jadi speaker lagi, dah beritahu aku boleh jawab yang mana yang tak boleh jawab. Okay. Well, nak jawab juga yang pasal Undi Rosak. No, I think it's minimal, extremely minimal. James Naim has, we have evidence, we have the data. I think this is media being caught up with writing about it, and people just a very small section. So far, and when we compare that with the turnout analysis, there's no indication that shows that Undi Rosak or turnout will be low. There's no indication that there is a dampened enthusiasm for the election, which I want to go to the third question first, which is, I think Krishna asked, right, whether we have included the turnout analysis. Remember I said when we do the polling, the first question we ask is actually, are you going to vote or not? Are you going to turn out to vote or not? The number is actually quite high. It's between 80 to 83% nationally. So the profiling actually includes the turnout. I have to admit that we have not probed more into the issue of turnout. We have not probed deeper. But the reason why we didn't probe deeper is because the number of respondents who say they will turn out is actually quite high. It's between 80 to 83%. So when you have that kind of high turnout answer, the effect on turnout on the profiling is actually still quite minimal. I admit that we have to do more work to it, but it is not as tricky as asking which party they vote for. For the time being, it looks as if that we should be able to repeat the kind of turnout in 2013. We just have to focus on fence-sitters to bring them out and non-Malays to make sure that they come back and vote for Pakatan. Tadi ada soalan mengenai calon. Apa yang kami dapat setakat ini ialah pengundi atas pagar ni sangat volatile. Sebab itu you tengok number kadang-kadang kan yo-yo juga daripada satu bulan ke satu bulan kan. Dia ada macam-macam pandangan. Dia tak setuju Pakatan buat yang ini, dia setuju yang itu. Dia ada macam-macam. You tanya different questions, jawapan dia lain. Tetapi overwhelmingly when you probe and remember in April 2017 kita telefon sampai 17,000 respondents. Kita dapat responden yang lengkap untuk kita fahami apa isu yang paling penting kepada pengundi. And by far isu yang paling penting kepada pengundi 3 benda, iaitu harga barang dan GST, gaji dan juga pekerja asing. All the other things sama ada menamakan Prime Minister ke, Kabinet, Shadow Kabinet ke, even rasuah for that matter, are all quite secondary to them. They are not happy. Kalau tanya dia, awak setuju tak rasuah? Oh, tak setuju. Najib rasuah tak? Oh, tak. Dia macam tu. But at the end of the day, the overwhelming decider for votes are those bread and butter issues. Jadi untuk menjawab soalan itu, adakah faktor calon yang tak perform semua ni ada kesan? Ada kesan, but I think from our analysis so far is actually quite minimal tau. Sama juga soalan kalau Pakatan buat A, Pakatan pakai satu logo, adakah itu akan ada kesan? Ada kesan, but very minimal. Kerana the whole narrative of the public now is sakit hati dengan Najib dan Rosmah. That's all. You know, the whole focus is against Najib and Rosmah because it's bread and butter. And because this is a digital age, people roughly know now what party you do, what. Jadi all these issue yang perhaps previously were considered as important, you know, pakai satu logo, satu parti, kena buat macam ni, kena buat macam tu, name shadow cabinet, it actually doesn't matter to them. What matters to them, gaji aku naik ke tidak, harga barang ataupun job. So my answer to that is, I think it's very low in terms of the ranking of issues that will make a difference. Serupa bila kita tanya pengundi mengenai RUU 355. Bila kita tanya, setujukah, ini 40,000 orang pengundi tau, in April 2017, setujukah, tahu ke tidak mengenai, kita tanya, setuju ke tidak mengenai hudud? 70% Melayu kata setuju. And then tanya lagi, tahu ke tidak mengenai RUU 355? Tak tahu. Sedangkan tadi dia kata dia akan sokong PAS, tapi dia tak tahu RUU 355. And then as you probe further, kita tanya, do you think it can be done? Probe further, do you think it can ensure justice? And the last question kita tanya, do you think this issue, whether or not a candidate support RUU 355, is going to be the sole determinant of your vote? Only about 12% yang cakap ya. Yang lain kata ada benda lain lah. GST lagi penting you know. So when you listen, that's why in digital age there are a lot of noise. People complain macam-macam, you know, pasal itu, pasal ini, but you must be able to figure out and distill what is the decider for a vote. And setakat ini, all the data that we have still show incredibly high, almost about 80% is all about bread and butter issues. It's not about calon pun, kalau rambut dia botak sikit pun dia tak kisahlah. Of course they wish to have someone yang cantik sikit, but you know, given that they hate Najib and Rosmah more, they will tolerate all the other small things.
Okay, can we get the next 3 questions? Boleh saya dapatkan 3 soalan seterusnya?
Yep, can go.
Yes, please. Oh, mic tak berfungsi.
Mic working. Can you just shout it out? Is it possible? Can we get a mic for the gentleman yang baju putih tu? Ada mic ke?
Bateri habis.
Dia start pukul 8 dah pukul 10 lebih.
Testing. Okay, so my name is Andre. So the question, so if for any reason at all, you know, that this prediction here does not or is completely wrong from the actual election results that will come out, say, within the next 3 to 4 months, what do you think might be the mistake that you may have underestimated or the mistake that you have made in your model over here?
Ya, Pak. Soalan.
Okay. Good evening to the panelists. My question is, I'm curious is whether Invoke will still be carrying out. Okay, I'm curious of whether Invoke will still carry out their survey activities during the campaign period. Yeah, because it's even we've seen in the 2016 U.S. elections and last year election that initial predictions in the early campaign doesn't necessarily reflect the results post polling day. Thank you.
Alright, Assalamualaikum. My name is Izwan. I would just like to ask questions regarding the polling that you made for the undecided and those who are that refuse to answer because they are worried about the implications, for example, like your PRIM. What made you think, based on the questionnaires and the prediction that you make, that these people, especially, for example, the Malays or the lower income citizens of Malaysia that is going to the poll, that they will eventually make the brave decision and vote for Pakatan as what you predicted? So that's my question.
Hello, good evening. My name is Afra Tong. Hello, Rafizi. Oh, you remember me? Now, today's topic is very simple. It's GE prediction. Tomorrow, the first prize from the Umpire Echo is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. First prize. Alfred Tong say one. So it's a prediction. So tonight, I think between the Pakatan Harapan and the Barisan Nasional, you know who is laughing right now? I can envisioning myself, Rosma and Najib is sitting down and watching, laughing because you know why? Until now, it's going to be 11 o'clock, it's going to end. My real question to you, because you represent the opposition. Yesterday, Pakatan launched the manifesto. They call themselves the government in waiting. I am not coming here to get hung by 89 for Pakatan Harapan, 76 for Barisan Nasional, and where is that 23? And the 23, you leave it on the 35% of the people not sure, not sure. But not for you. Not for you, Rafizi, because you know why? You have done 18 months of studies and you have put your mind and energy into it, so you have the feeling. So my question to you is, I want your bet right now before every one of you go back. Whether we feel happy or not happy, what is your bet? Can the opposition win this GE-14? This is my question. This is my bet. Then everybody can go back, hoo-ha, and we just wait for the polling day. Okay? What is your bet, Rafizi? As an opposition, I know you're not going to vote. Never mind. Never mind. It's okay. But your bet is very important because your prediction, everything must have a prediction.
Alright, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Alright, back to the panelists.
Untuk yang tu boleh remain, we remember your face, so you're going to be the next two. Alright, lepas ni Alright, cool. Okay. So then we have 4 questions. I think the third and fourth one is somehow related, which is the persuadability of the undecided votes, right? That is what they are coming through. So just go straight away with YB Rafizi lah. First one with the Andres question. Kalau fail, what could be the potential gap of this polling, and then whether the polling can be done as we're getting nearer to the actual D-Day, and then the third and fourth one, which is whether we're able to persuade the undecided voters vote.
Okay, let me answer Alfred first lah. Number one, I'm not allowed by Islam to bet. I can't. I can't. But okay, let me tell you this, Okay, okay. The prediction is this. you have to see a few of the trends to be able to tell the possible outcome if election were to be held 2 months from now. Number one, if UMNO continues to drop at the rate of 5 to 6% on monthly basis like this, of course it will plateau at some points. But in Tri-Qualified, the magic number is 40%. When UMNO actually gets Malay votes below 40% in Tri-Qualified, then UMNO stands or UMNO risks losing Putrajaya, because the way that the seats are engineered in this country, in Semenanjung, out of the 165 parliamentary seats, 35 are super majority Chinese seats. So DAP will win this. 40 seats are super majority Malay seats, which BN will win no matter how. So the real contest is about the 90 mid seats in Semenanjung, 90 and 40 and 35. The 90 seats yang I mentioned tadi is actually a seat whereby you are looking at between 60 to 70% Malays and 30 to 40% non-Malays. These seats, when UMNO votes fall below 40%, they're all in danger of falling. So what I showed just now, Alfred, is this. Since December 2017, UMNO numbers has dropped below 41%. And not only that, it drops below 41%, it drops so radically quickly below 41%, from 41 to 38 to 35, and then February to 28, I think. To add, the next part of it is that the Chinese votes have come back to pre-2013 numbers. When you put all this together, it is likely that Pakatan will win almost all the 90 mid seats. Almost all, if it puts enough work between now and election. As it is now, is like that. So, of course, two years ago, I think I was made the ridicule of the town when I said that Tri-Qualified is good for Pakatan. And I'm a prophet of Tri-Qualified for the last 2 years. To the point that I become extremely hated by some people, because I said electorally Tri-Qualified gives advantage to Pakatan provided Malay votes from UMNO falls below 40%, and that's happening. So if you ask me, Alfred, it is going to happen. My concern is this: we also have to pay attention to that 30 to 35% persuadable voters, because they are very volatile and they don't have. The biggest issue to them is bread and butter. So while UMNO is more or less cornered, jauh dah dengan undi mid seat ni, kerana dia dapat lebih Melayu, dia hilang Cina. Dia cuba dapat Cina, dia hilang Melayu. So it's quite difficult for them. But don't underestimate how sensitive the persuaded voters are to mistakes and to complacency and to scandals. So I think my belief is, it's not even a betting, it's not even a prediction, my belief is Pakatan will win and hit about 120 seats in the next general election. And that's my belief. People who know me behind the scene know that I brief our candidates and political leaderships that we should be able to hit 120 Semenanjung, with another 10 to 15 from Sabah Sarawak. So we are actually on course for quite a comfortable majority. I don't want to show that because not just SB, I'm more concerned about Pakatan candidates, because the moment they know we're going to win, they will start buying Mercedes, Velfire, and start going to holiday and so on. They will start leaving their campaign because they think, yeah, aku jadi menteri lepas ni. So I'm more concerned, and I rather be on the conservative side. So the prediction number that we show is actually very conservative. The first and third question is actually related. It's about the profiling model is about the biggest issue, which is how the fence-sitters are going to vote. You see, people always talk about Trump and the mistake. Actually, the Hillary and Trump punya poll, the number was on the spot. Number was on the spot. Because the number that was quoted all the time, that Hillary would win by 3%, is the national survey number. And by popular vote, memang Hillary menang 3%. The mistake was because they did not poll enough from the bellwether states. The pollsters ignore that states that were considered traditionally Democrats, which was Wisconsin, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. They ignored these states and they didn't sample enough or did enough probing when they did polling for the state. So while the national state was spot on, 3%, Hillary was above, that 3% itu dia terlebih dekat California, kurang dekat Ohio, Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. So to answer question number 1 and number 3, the biggest problem with any polling, which I took some pains to explain at the beginning, is this: the sampling has to be representative. If there is one mistake and that mistake will cause us election, it's because our sampling has blind spot. That we sample Cina muda, Cina tua, Cina kampung, Cina bandar, tapi kita tak sample Cina yang kat mana kampung, Cina separa bandar contohnya, kita tak sample. Ayo, Cina Bangi ataupun Cina Pengkalan Kubu Baru, kita tak sample. So there's one sampling group which is completely left out, and therefore we did not factor that into it. So the biggest problem doing modeling like this is the same anywhere, which is we face the risk that we have blind spots. That's why you notice we try to do as many surveys and as many medium of surveys. We do IVR, we do direct call, we do Facebook, we listen to what people say on their social media. We take the feedback from the ground because we want to see everything to make sure that there is no blind spot. And so number 1, if it were to fail, is because blind spot in sampling. Contohnya, we assume semua orang Kelantan sayang Kak PAS, contohnya. For all you know, ada 5 orang, ada satu group yang hardcore suka kepada DAP, tapi we didn't model them. And going back to the issue about how sure voters will vote for Pakatan, let me put this way. I don't think many of you understand that the result of the prediction is not just from the survey. It is from data points. And by data points, there are many data points which are not survey related. For example, data points about membership of political parties. So contohnya, kita model and take into account, kalau bapak you UMNO, mak you UMNO, nenek you UMNO, the higher probability that you are UMNO, for example. Because we take the data points from the political party membership. We take data points from recipients of government aids, contohnya. The people who receive government aids have higher probability that they will vote for BN compared to people who don't receive, and so on and so forth. Level of education, income, semua masuk. So to your question, how sure are we that they will vote for Pakatan? That's why you have to ask as many probing questions as possible, because the more data points, the more they will reveal a bit about themselves. Contohnya, orang yang kata dia atas pagar, bila ditanya esok nak undi siapa, dia jawab saya belum buat keputusan lah, ataupun dia kata undi saya rahsia. Kemudian kita tanya, adakah GST ini salah Najib? Ya, celaka Najib. Soalan ketiga, kita tanya dia, setuju ke tidak 3.5? Not pass. Jawab macam tu. So walaupun dia jawab awal-awal tu, the answer is neutral, that I have not decided. All the questions, the profiling questions, the next 7 profiling questions, basically match exactly the profile and the answers that are given by Pakatan supporters. Because I don't share all the 7 profiling questions. Because Bapa share, that's our trade secret lah, you know. There are things, for example, we ask, of the following factors, which are the factor that can make you vote for BN? Number 1, the leadership of Najib. Number 2, the stability of long BN rule. Number 3, good economy. Number 4, none of the above. We ask the same thing. PAS, what are the factors that can make you vote for PAS? Number 1, leadership of Hadi. Number 2, to implement Islamic law. Number 3, to look after the welfare of the public. Number 4, none of the above. When you take all these data points and you are able to see that although they say that they have not decided or they refuse to tell, but their profile 80%, 90% match the profile of the Pakatan voters, that will increase their support score for Pakatan. And therefore, when the system draw their number, they are profile either as Pakatan or fence-sitters which are persuadable. We show that as fence-sitters. My gut feeling, there are about 80% of those 35 undecided and refused to answer. About 80% of them are actually Pakatan supporters. They just don't want to say. But as pollsters, now that I'm a pollster, I have to be responsible. My gut feeling does not matter. What matters is what they say in their poll. They say that they are undecided and they say that they refuse to answer. So they are shown as undecided and refuse to answer. Although all the next 7 questions dia semua jawapan dia mati Najib. And the last question tadi, the second question about are we going to do the monthly polling? We are. And as we go into the first day of Parliament dissolution, we will do daily polling. So we will roughly know lah. A lot of you most probably will not get calls from us because you are totok Pakatan. What's the point of calling you guys? The machine most probably do not, when they randomly pick you up, especially now more and more people are totok Pakatan. Therefore, the chance that you get picked up by the system gets lower by the day, So, but we will do polling on daily basis just to know the national mood from the first day of Parliament dissolution.
Okay. Hello. Hello. Okay. I want to ask a question, but firstly, I'm not voting this year because I am underage. Okay. So what I know from Invoke is they are using the highly intelligent people. Some of them are background from statisticians, mathematicians, and data scientists. Is it right? Okay. My question is, how you get the data yang dekat kampung? Contoh macam yang makcik-makcik yang tak ada internet kan. So how you analyze the data? Okay. Secondly, is the BN party using the same method to analyze their citizen voter, just like Invoke do like this? Okay. And lastly, do you actually ask the disagree group or the confused group what actually they want for GE-14? If they answer it, why not you use their wish for political purpose? This technique is same as Cambridge Analytica, which they analyze the human behavior based data on social media. Okay, that's all.
Okay, Jimmy.
My name is Jimmy Teo. Very exciting sharing here, but I got one question to Wabira. Just now you say Tutup Pakatan Harapan. What is the most happiest time that you can convert all this Tutup Harapan to multiply the fence-sitter into 100,000 fence-sitter voting for Pakatan Harapan?
Okay, my question is, because I just heard today about this undi saya rahsia. I think it's very interesting because currently many people are running these social media of YouTube, Facebook, and also WhatsApp. I think undi saya rahsia is going to be a very effective tool to assist these fan-sitters to influence the coming general election. So just want to check with YB, Rafizi, besides undi saya rahsia, are there any more other tools that the rakyat can use to share among other rakyats? And maybe we can also have to emphasize a bit on this undi saya rahsia, because I've been running this WhatsApp group with 2,000 people for Invoke. Okay, our name is Support Invoke. So far I have not received anything from Pakatan about undi saya rahsia. Nothing. Really, seriously, nothing. I only heard about it now. So it would be very helpful if I can receive a picture about undi saya rahsia so that I can share it among 2,000 people, and these 2,000 people can share it among the other Malaysians. I got a very strong feeling the election is coming, either on late April or early May. So I think maybe besides undi saya rahsia, are there any other tools that we can use?
Alright, but before we go further, so we're just going to take last two questions. I'm sorry if you're not able to address your question. So we're going to take from the lady with the turquoise color and also the kakak here. Alright, so the rest, I apologize. We apologize because we're not able to address all of the questions. Alright, okay, starting from you.
Hello, my name is Helen Ting. I just want to understand better how you do the sampling, in the sense that you develop somehow 24 strata, right? So how do you match that with the voters? Do you know they belong to which? Because if you want to come out,
you have to hold your mic.
Hold my mic. If you want the you to also you do it state by state. So how do you know how many of this fit which strata, and how do you ask? Are you doing the polling from among your 50,000? I don't quite get it. How you determine? Yeah.
Right. The last question.
The last question.
Hi, my name is Laila Sabiha. My first question is about, do you even realize that some people are actually, they don't know that PAS is no longer in Pakatan, and they even don't know that Amanah exists. This is true because it happens especially in rural area. And second thing, do you agree that by choosing Tun M as the candidates for Prime Minister, it will affect the people not to vote Pakatan? And lastly, I hope that next time Invoke can invite women speaker so that it can be like more diverse in opinions. That's all. Thank you.
All right, points taken. Yeah.
On the women speaker, actually our data scientist ada seorang saja perempuan, dan she cleans the data. She doesn't do the matching semua, but I think they are here not because they are politicians or anything. They are the people who work with the data. And so for the time being, it's not so much because we purposely don't include a woman. It's just that our whole data team is actually male, except for one female, which is Shaira. Shaira does the data integrity. She doesn't do the data matching and so on. On the issue of Tun Mahathir, I think I've answered that generally tadi, which is every voter actually has a series of issues which are important to them, the likes and dislikes, but overwhelmingly the top issues are bread and butter and GST and wages. So whether they agree or disagree dengan Tun Mahathir, that might have some momentary effect on their voting preference, but our observation is generally after 1 month, since 1 month, it goes back to the issue of bread and butter. So I think by the time we go into general election, whether the like or dislike of Tun Mahathir will taper off. The issue about PAS pass, whether they know, ada orang tahu ke tidak amanah ke apa tu, that is a work in progress. But remember, this is first past the post, and more so now is a first past the post between 3 corner files. We are not in the business of converting every pakcik, makcik, tok nenek yang sokong PAS to become pakatan. If they don't realize that pakatan now has amanah, that's fine. So long as we get enough from the fence-sitters to vote for pakatan. And that's what Invoke does. We advocate to our candidates that spend and train your gun where it matters most. Don't do a scattergun approach. It doesn't work. It's a total waste of resources. There is no point knocking doors on a generation of PAS supporters and try to get them to vote for Pakatan. They will punch you in the face. Likewise, there is no point trying to convince Ketua Cawangan UMNO. It's a total waste of time. So what we do is that we are able to extract and profile. These are the fence-sitters, and you focus on them, and chances are the fence-sitters actually are more knowledgeable and more up-to-date with the latest political development. To the question about how do we stratify and randomize, actually it is done by computer. When we set up the call center, and the technical expertise comes from Andrew Cluster. Andrew used to be head of polling for World Bank in Washington, and also used to be the deputy chief analytics for Obama. So what he did was that when we started, we brought together some people from call center business. They are service providers. We wrote the code. So what the system does is this. We have the phone number for about 11 million voters. There are 15 million voters. We have the phone numbers for 11 million voters. Then bila we do a survey, the system actually automatically decides, kalau for example the first strata, this strata represent, katakanlah, ideally katakanlah, hypothetically it represents 20% of the population. So the system will call more of these, and remember we have 300 calls at every 1 minute. 300 numbers are being called. So some strata are being called less than the other, and therefore as we go along, more calls are being picked up by people from a particular strata. So to your question tadi, actually it's not done manually. It is done by a computer system. That's why unless you have a computerized computer system, polling system that can stratify and randomize, is going to be a nightmare trying to stratify and randomize on your own. So it is basically is the coding that is written in the PABX and also the dialing system. There's what else? Other question today? Is BN is using the same method? I know they use a lot of polling as well. I'm sure I never got the call because obviously they profiled me as NTBN, so there's no point calling me. But I'm sure if you talk to people, you always come across people who receive calls from BN. To tell a difference between BN and Invoke actually introduce ourselves. We say that we are from Invoke Center for Policy. I can't remember what's our name. Okay, aku dah lupa dah. It's late at night. Okay, and then our first question is always, are you going to vote? And then the second question is that if there are 3 corner fights, how are you going to vote? The end question ditanya lain tau. Adakah anda berpuas hati dengan khidmat wakil rakyat? Adakah anda rasa Datuk Seri Ong Kah Chuan boleh menang lagi? So the question is different, but I know they are doing as many polls, in fact more polls than we do. Whether or not they use the poll as a data points into big data profiling the way we do, that one I don't know. But whatever it is, I think no matter how many data points and no matter how many analyses that they have among themselves, at the end of the day, Rosmah calls the shot. So it's quite useless to do any data points. Ada lagi yang lain tak?
How do you get data in kampung?
Okay, there's one question about how do we get data in kampung. How do we get data? Our answer has always been that's proprietary, we will not tell you. How do we reach out to makcik in kampung? Remember, we have 11 million phone numbers, and that phone numbers either handphone ataupun landlines. So actually, many household actually have phone nowadays in Semenanjung. That's why our data are more reliable for Semenanjung than Sabah and Sarawak. As you go for Sabah and Sarawak, that's why it's getting more difficult for us to get the correct number of the required completed respondents for Sabah and Sarawak. Partly is also because of the phone numbers, because in Borneo actually the phone numbers is a lot less than the one that we have in Semenanjung. But in Semenanjung, even pakcik-makcik kat rumah semua they have phone, so I wouldn't worry too much. Then finally about undi rahsia, I think I understand where you're coming. One of the reasons why people refuse to tell, or the biggest issue in fact, especially with civil servants, are whether or not their votes are confidential. It has been discussed thoroughly at Pakatan Harapan that we need to educate our voters that votes are confidential indeed. But I suppose this has not taken off as fast as we should. So that is a good input, and I hope we can push it in Pakatan so that there's a massive nationwide campaign to that's the last question.
Right, so there's a last are you
so we'll need to basically rev up the campaign so that more and more people understand that their votes are confidential.
I'm sorry,
final question is,
can I be brave and put one more last question, please? What about the postal voters, undi post? We know that there are going to be up to 1 million. So how will that impact?
Yeah, exactly. This almost the same about the question that I received from the written notes. So basically, the question is about postal vote, because now there are a larger number of government servants that is allowed to go by postal vote. So we have Pacha in Invoke that able to make sure that the voting integrity of the voting is being done.
Not really for postal vote.
So how to address this? Is there a blind spot that Invoke cannot
It's
address?
not a blind spot, but it's a very big risk. And if I were to profile the risk for this election, for the time being, the biggest risk is that 1 million postal votes. Postal vote is very different from early votes. Early votes allow our polling and counting agents to be stationed there, and therefore it's harder to cheat. But postal votes is basically anyone's guess who actually cast the ballot, because supposedly the postal votes are given to voters earlier on, and then they post this, and then on the day itself they just appear. So to your question, yes, if SPR and Najib managed to get that 1 million civil servants converted into postal voters, and if somehow they manage to cheat big time, that the civil servants who are now postal voters don't receive their ballots, and in fact someone else actually cast their ballots, then I think we can kiss the whole prediction goodbye. Yes, so those are the kind of things that is a work in progress in the next 2 months. There are risks like that. If Pakatan Harapan is complacent, if Bersih does not scream hard enough and does not put people to make a political push for this, and if we sit down and rest our laurel because we think that Pakatan is going to win, and it doesn't even have to be 1 million. If we have an increase of 200,000 postal voters, and these are all redistributed to seats like Khairi Jamaluddin, Ishamuddin Hussein, Ahmad Bashar, then Ahmad Bashar will actually wake up again and become MB again. So yes, that has been discussed, but I share your sentiment. I think we need to kick the fuss a lot more about the postal voters rather than just issuing statements every now and then.
Right, lastly, this is the final written question that we received. So the question is, if BN wins GE-14, the worst case scenario, what is our plan B? Are we able to make sure that the fire that is being lighted now can remain intact come GE-15?
When we started Invoke about 18 months ago, we were planning for GE-15. We never thought that we could build the capacity and capability within 18 months. But Malaysians are wonderful people. We could do what we initially set out to do in a few years. So the system is there, the profiling and everything, and whatever that we build to help progressive candidates is going to be there. What is not there, that I will be in jail at least for 4 years, you know. But some other people have to make sure that it's ongoing. So to the question about if BN wins, is that the end of the world? No, I don't think so. I don't think the progress, the democratic emancipation that we have seen over the last 10 years since 2008, I actually don't think is reversible. It's irreversible. The reason being, it's got nothing to do with Pakatan, with Najib, with Mahathir, with Anwar, or with anyone. It's just a progress that society makes in this digital age. The moment you can no longer control information, the public knows enough to make up their mind what is good and what is bad. And once the public tastes the good seed of political competition between two coalitions, they will never allow that political competition to die, because public is the winner. If they don't like Pakatan, they vote Pakatan out, they bring BN. If they don't like BN, they get rid of BN. So I think by and large, the strides that we have made in terms of political progress is going to pick up the momentum with or without GE-14 win. Our own experience recruiting volunteers and getting people to do, and bear in mind, despite all this negative pessimism that people are disillusioned, that there's undi rosak and so on, public has given Invoke close to 6 million in a space of 1 year. Unprecedented. 10 ringgit, 20 ringgit, 30 ringgit. So this is the kind of things that James referred to as qualitative evidence that the zeal for change is very strong with the public, because we have about 15,000 Malaysians who gave money to us one way or another in the last 12 months, and there are more Malays who give to Invoke than Chinese or Indians. They give 10, 20. So if anything, to me, when people are willing to part away with their money, it means that they believe in a cause. Something that comes from the grassroots like this cannot be put down just like that. And the reason why we show the number, because if we don't win this time around, it is such a pity, because the public is ready for it. Society is ready for it. For the first time, you see Chinese, Indian, Malay actually all in agreement. If we lose, that's because Pakatan Harapan screw up. Simple. Okay. So it's a waste. I am in and out of Pakatan and political system. What we work with society in terms of making sure the democratic progress continues, it will continue after GE-14, even if Pakatan Harapan is in government, because power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. If BN kena pukul mati in this election, and we have a very strong Pakatan government, it wouldn't be long before they become corrupt again. Yeah, that's my feeling. So that's why the power and the decision and the tool must always be in the hands of the public, and that's what we try to develop from time to time. So I think that's the end. Thank you very much.
Yep, another round of applause to our panelists. I have nothing to add. Thank you for staying back, and kepada 1,000 orang yang masih menonton di rumah juga terima kasih dari kami di Invoke. Lastly, dekat luar ada donation box. Please fill it in. Kita ada jual merchandise. Please contribute, as macam YB or Rafizi cakap, we are that close. Let's not screw up. Alright, thank you very much. Have a good night. Have a safe drive.